Excellent. Let's get back into the book. We're looking at part 2 in the book. And the first page is a little bit of a recap. So let's recap a few things that we learned in part 1. One is looking at our learning strategies and actually setting up time, at least once a week, to go through one video at a time, not cramming. All right. Number 2, learning strategies, a great thing to do is to share what we've learned. When we talk about what we've learned, remember, we've got these 3 juggling balls that we're looking at building on. One is that understanding. And the reason that that part is so important, when they looked and they talked to the people who had gone through their program and they asked, like, what do you think it is that made such a big impact on your pain? And the resounding answer was always how much they learned and how much they could understand why their pain was the way it was. Okay, now that's a huge step because we have to be able to look beyond the fact that someone else isn't going to fix us, that a huge part of that is looking at how we're doing things. And that can be really hard sometimes because we do have bad habits. We do have things that just contribute to it. And we need to look at that in a bigger picture, not in a way of, oh, I'm so bad, I did this, but in a way that, oh, I've opened my eyes, I can look at the bigger picture, and now I'm ready to make some changes. Okay? So, do you remember what those 3 balls were? We talked about understanding. Okay, the other one was resetting and reconnecting those nervous systems, the pain system, the musculoskeletal system, the adrenaline, that sympathetic nervous system, all of those things to reset them back to a baseline so that they're not overprotecting anymore. They're back to a more reasonable level. And we're going to be talking more about that in this chapter. Now, with this chapter, it also goes over the old way of looking at pain and the new way of looking at pain. Okay, so when we look at these essential pain facts that they took, that the people, those 400 or 500 people that did the program that they talked to, that went, what is it that you learned that helped you move on, that helped you rebuild, reconnect, and lower those pain experiences? Remembering those 4 basic essential pain facts, that pain is meant to protect us and promote recovery. The number 2 fact is that persistent pain ends up overprotecting us, and it does prevent recovery. Now, the 3rd one, remember, many factors influence pain. And there's a great study, well, it's not really a study, they were at a conference and they asked all of the attendees, this was a pain conference, I think probably, what did they say? It was at least 4 years ago, I think it was in 2019. And they asked, what factors influence pain? And they asked everybody at the conference. So they took all the answers and made a little graph. Okay, so as you can see on this graph, there are so many parts that influence pain. They're not all the psychosocial aspects. A lot of them are just biological aspects. So when we look at pain, this isn't just us looking, going, oh, it's all in my head. That's why that 3rd juggling ball, the movement and loading, how we can change our tissues, how we can create healthy joints, movement patterns, healthy habits, that's a huge part of this as well. All right, so remember the 4th pain fact, there are many ways to reduce pain and gradually retrain the system. Remember that 2nd juggling ball, resetting and reconnecting. Now they do put in here a 5th essential pain fact, all right? So the essential pain fact number 5 is that our body and brain will change and we can direct the change. That's the work. because the tendency is, and this is how we typically end up in this persistent pain situation, is that we've created these habits that we do that have changed our systems, that have changed our sympathetic nervous system, our pain system, our musculoskeletal system, all of these different things, our immune system. These have become changes because we are bioplastic and neuroplastic. Now, I know in the previous video I did say these are kind of the same word. Bioplasticity is kind of the word they use in Australia. Neuroplasticity is more likely the word that we use here in North America, but they do refer to the same thing, that our systems can change and we have to direct that change. That's that essential pain fact number 5. All right. Now, when we turn the page, it does again talk about the old view of pain. Okay. And you'll see there's like this body part. It says it has a pain receptor. There's a straight direct line all the way up the spinal cord to the brain. And the brain says, I have pain. And then we have to assess that. Now, we have to understand that that is a old view of pain. That's a basic view of pain. But when we look at what it is, okay, we have to be able to understand that the way pain actually works in the body. I want you to imagine this, okay? You stub your toe, all right? You stub your toe. There's a nerve in your body that responds to pressure, temperature, and chemical reactions, okay? So if it's a hard pressure, like stubbing your toe, or temperature, like touching a hot stove, or chemical, like a chemical spill, there's a nerve in our body that goes super fast. It's like the Autobahn of our nervous system. It goes all the way up to the brain. And it goes, hey brain, there's something wrong. There's something happened in the distal toe. Can we get a picture on what's going on? And the brain goes, oh, pressure in the toe. Do I have any experience with that? Not really. Well, let's go check some of the other systems that we can check. Now, this is happening at lightning speed, but the brain kind of looks around and goes to memories and goes to different aspects and says, you know, what's going on? We look, when we get that visual on what might have happened, that might be something too. And then the brain can respond and sends a signal back down that if it senses that it's a danger, that pain sensation that gets sent down pulls us away, okay? So in that regard, our brain is processing that experience in like hyper realistic time, but it's processing that experience. Now, if you've had the multiple experience of stubbing your toe in the same place, your brain goes, oh yeah, I remember a memory. We stubbed our toe here before. It really hurt. We weren't so bad, so we can keep walking. And it gives you a pain sensation that gives you an idea of what happened, but it's not so bad. Whereas there's a great story that Lorimer Moseley tells of how he was walking through the bush. And it's a great story. I highly recommend looking it up on YouTube. The gist of it is that he was walking through the bush. He's used to walking through the bush in Australia, and he gets a snag and he thinks it's a scratch. So he just scratches it off and he keeps walking. He goes for his swim. He starts walking back, and all of a sudden his entire system starts shutting down. It wasn't a scratch. It was a snake bite. Now, luckily in Australia, the anti-venom program is huge. It's free. It's great. If you're ever going to be bit by a snake, that's a good place to have that happen to you. There's a lot of deadly snakes there, but the gist is when he went for his walk later on, like 6 months later, he's walking through the bush and his processing system had stored that memory of a scratch being an actual snake bite. So he's walking through the bush and he gets a scratch, and his system because it has that memory, responds tenfold. And it's like he is dying because his body believes he was bit by another snake, where it was really only a scratch. So that's how our system is meant to protect us, right? And that system, the more you like respond to that scratch/snake bite, your body tries to protect you even more. And then by the time, if that happens more frequently, maybe you look at a field and go, oh man, like my ankle hurts. That's where I got that snake bite. So your system's protecting you, trying to keep you away from that field or that bush, whatever you were walking through. Okay. Now you've hit that overprotective system. So can you see how the brain is involved in how it relates to our experience? Okay. So with that, there is a lot more. I'll give it that. Like if you're out walking and you break your ankle, there's going to be more messages sent up to your brain to figure out how and how much danger realistically you are in. So with that, now we've got the old view of pain, okay? Our old view of pain, it sounds sensible, right? We touch something, the pain signal goes to our brain and it goes, ow, right? That hurts. Whereas now, if we're looking at this back and forth, this two-way path, the old way of thinking about pain cannot explain the next few things. It can't explain severe bruises when we can't remember how they got there. Right? It can't explain the spreading of pain after an injury. It cannot explain experiencing pain in body parts that have been shown to be healthy. And a lot of times with persistent pain, things like fibromyalgia, you've had the scans, you've had the x-rays, you've had multiple tests. Physically, biomedically, there's nothing wrong. They can't find a specific thing, but your body's having this pain experience. The old way of pain can't explain why that is happening, right? There's other things like pain that changes in unpredictable ways, pain conditions that are more common in women than they are in men, but women don't have more injuries. How everyone can get pain relief from placebo pills that have absolutely no effect on the body. When they do different studies, a lot of times they'll put in that placebo effect to see if just being told gives a response that you're going to get better versus the actual pill itself. And that's a valid, very important part of a lot of studies, because if there's a placebo effect that is the same as the pill that you're getting, it kind of goes to show you that just talking and learning about something or believing that you're getting help has the same effect as whatever medication that had been, right? So the brain, our nervous system, plays a big part in how we experience pain. All right. Same thing goes for why all pain doesn't resolve when an injury heals. And they set the persistent pain kind of level at 3 months, because typically when you look at how tissues heal, whether it's bone tissue, muscular tissue, ligaments, tendons, a whole bunch of things, that tissue, if it is rehabbed well, will heal within that 3-month mark. And if there's still pain, now we have to look at it from a persistent pain view. Whether there's still a structural issue that might be 20% of it, and the neuroplastic issue is 80%, or maybe it's 50-50, we can't answer that question completely. We have to kind of live in that gray area, right? So, according to the old view of pain, if a body part hurts, then there must be tissue damage there. Now we look at the new view of pain, it makes more sense how all these things put together, okay? So, health professionals need to take responsibility here. I am standing up, I'm taking responsibility. I would love for more health professionals to learn the difference between the old way of pain and the new way of pain so that we can hopefully avoid a lot of persistent issues in the future. But again, this is fairly new information. Even though it is 20 years old, we still need to work it into the system. So this new view is that pain does not detect injury, it protects us from injury, right? So let's look at this a little bit more. To give you an idea of how much more complex pain really is, they've drawn the modern pain view on the next page. Now, when you have the book, you're going to look at the next page. We had this first page where it was pretty much a direct line from the body part straight up to the brain going, oh yeah, I have pain. Okay. Now, the next page explains how I listed all of those things, right? Why some injuries can be more painful, why some injuries aren't painful, why we get bruises and we don't remember why often women have more pain than men, but there's not more injuries, why all of those old views of pain can't explain what we just talked about, okay? So when we turn this page, okay, be prepared. It is not just a straight line. So there is an boop, boop, action piece, all right? And it says, prepare yourself for the drawing on the next page. It is a lot to take in. We're going to revisit the drawing throughout the book, but notice it, okay? Does anything stand out to you? Now, I'm going to show you this picture, all right? Here we go. This is the new view of pain. It is way more complex than when we look at the old view of pain. And when you look at this new view of pain and you start piecing together the little parts that are on there, that knowledge and beliefs, previous outcomes, our culture, stiffness, if we're hungry, there's millions of sensors in the body. There's what we drink, what we eat, there's our home life, there's our mindset, there's mood, there's fear, there's all of these different parts that come in, they assess, they go back, they do this, they go in every which direction. Don't get overwhelmed. Okay, this is just trying to explain that pain, the new way of looking at pain is different. And this new way of looking at pain gives us way better explanations as to how persistent pain happens versus that old way of pain. Okay, now we're going to pause right here because the next video is important and there's lots to learn in it. So take a look at that pain, that new pain system, and just kind of play around it. Follow those little lines, see where they lead you. And you're going to learn more about it because we're going to talk way more about it throughout the book, but give yourself a chance to follow it along and look at it. And I will see you in the next video.